It was 2:47 in the morning when everything changed. A quiet house on a quiet street, until a scream broke the stillness. It wasn't just any scream. It was the kind of sound that shakes something inside you. A sound only a mother makes when she's discovered something so devastating that her body can barely hold the weight of it. Her name is Dana Caldwell. A mother, a fighter, and someone the justice system never expected to stand her ground. Before we continue, if you're drawn to true stories of injustice, heartbreak, and the strength of those who refuse to give up, please take a second to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It helps this story reach more people, and some stories need to be heard. Dana's story begins like so many others, ordinary, familiar. A single mother raising her teenage son, Jacob. They weren't rich. They didn't have a big house or a flashy car, but they had each other. Jacob was 17. Smart, quiet. He loved music and science fiction novels. He had this way of making people laugh without even trying. He was her only child, and he was everything to her. On October 4th, Dana sent Jacob a text just before heading to bed. "Don't stay up too late," it said. He replied with a thumbs up and a heart. She smiled, not knowing that would be the last message she'd ever get from him. At 2:47 a.m., Dana woke with a start. The house was quiet, but something felt off. That gut feeling, that silent alarm that only mothers seem to hear. She got out of bed, walked down the hall, and opened Jacob's door. What she saw shattered her. Jacob was lying motionless, cold. There were signs of a struggle, but it didn't make sense. There was no forced entry, no clear sign of what had happened. She screamed for help, called 911 with shaking hands. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but it was already too late. The initial police report called it suspicious but inconclusive. That's the phrase they used. Suspicious but inconclusive. As if that would be enough for a mother who had just lost her child. As if that would bring her any peace. Dana kept asking questions. What caused the bruises on Jacob's arms? Why was his phone missing? Why did his best friend, Kyle, change his story 3 times in the first 2 hours of questioning? But no one seemed interested in the answers. The detective assigned to the case, a man Dana had never met before, told her bluntly, "Sometimes kids get into things they shouldn't." That was his explanation. He suggested maybe Jacob had overdosed. Dana knew her son. She knew that wasn't the truth. When the autopsy came back, it said undetermined causes. No drugs in his system. No clear injury that would have caused his death. Just a blank space where the truth should have been. Dana tried to grieve. She tried to survive. But something inside her refused to let this end in silence. She began to investigate herself. She requested the police reports. She went through Jacob's belongings, searching for anything that didn't fit. She spoke to his friends, his teachers, anyone who might have noticed something unusual in the days before he died. One of Jacob's classmates mentioned something strange, that Jacob had been worried about someone following him. He said he didn't feel safe, that he saw the same car parked near his school 2 days in a row. Dana told the police. They didn't follow up. When she showed up at the station for the 5th time in 2 weeks, she noticed the shift in how they looked at her. The pity was gone, replaced by something colder. Annoyance. Resistance. As if her grief was an inconvenience. But Dana didn't stop. She posted on social media. She started tagging local news outlets. She wrote letters to elected officials. And slowly, painfully, the responses trickled in. Most of them were the same, "We're sorry for your loss." That was the line everyone used. But none of them offered help. Months passed. Dana lost her job. Her grief had become too loud, too consuming. Her landlord gave her a warning about the rent being late. Friends stopped calling. Even some family began to pull away. The silence was deafening. And yet, she pressed on. One night, while sorting through Jacob's old emails, Dana found a message that stopped her cold. It was dated 2 weeks before he died. Sent to one of his teachers. In it, Jacob wrote, "I think I messed up. I don't know who to talk to. If anything happens to me, please tell my mom I tried." That one message changed everything. Dana printed it out, highlighted every line. She brought it to the station the next day. The detective barely looked at it. She remembers every word he said. Teenagers say dramatic things. Doesn't mean anything happened. But it did mean something. Dana knew it. And she was done asking nicely. She began compiling everything she had. Texts, emails, interviews, timelines. She started a blog, sharing Jacob's story in her own words. At first, only a few people saw it. But then, a journalist from a small local paper stumbled across it and reached out. That article was the spark Dana had been praying for. In the weeks that followed, more people began to pay attention. Strangers messaged her with support. Other mothers reached out, some who had lost children of their own, others still fighting for justice. A small online community began to form, unified by pain and persistence. But with that attention came pressure. Dana began receiving anonymous messages telling her to stop. Notes slipped into her mailbox with words like "let it go" and "you don't want this." Her car tires were slashed. Once, she came home to find her apartment door cracked open. Still, she didn't back down. Because when you take everything from a mother, when you strip her of answers, of safety, of her child, you leave behind something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose. This is only the beginning of Dana Caldwell's fight. What she uncovered next would expose cracks not just in a single investigation, but in the entire system meant to protect families like hers. If you're still with us, thank you. These stories are not easy to hear, but they matter. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe for the next chapter, and share this story. You never know who might need to hear it. Justice doesn't come easy. But Dana Caldwell? She's not done yet. By the time the first article was published, it had been 7 months since Dana Caldwell found her son lifeless in his bedroom. 7 months of questions without answers. 7 months of chasing shadows, being ignored, dismissed, and slowly unraveling in a world that refused to listen. But when the story finally broke, mother seeks answers in mysterious death of teen son, something shifted. It wasn't a tidal wave, more like a quiet ripple. But Dana felt it. For the first time, someone outside her grief saw her. Within days, people began to talk. The story spread from a small-town column to larger blogs and forums. Comments poured in from strangers, some offering condolences, others sharing eerily similar stories. Stories of loved ones gone too soon, of cases left cold, of mothers and fathers battling the silence just like Dana. She wasn't alone anymore. Dana's blog started getting more traffic. Her inbox filled with tips, some useful, some speculative. But one email stopped her breath. It came from someone who claimed to be a former classmate of Jacob's. The message was short, careful. The sender didn't sign their name. But what it said made Dana sit up straight. Jacob was scared. Not paranoid, scared. I don't think it was random. Check who he was talking to online. Especially in September. Dana remembered Jacob's laptop, sitting untouched in the closet since the funeral. She had avoided it for months, afraid of what she might find, or worse, what she wouldn't. But now, with trembling hands, she powered it on. The login screen blinked at her. For a moment, she froze, until she typed the password she had seen him use 100 times before, Star Wars 19. The desktop loaded. What she found wasn't what she expected. Buried in an unnamed folder were screenshots, hundreds of them. Conversations from an encrypted messaging app she'd never heard of. She couldn't see who Jacob had been talking to, but the tone was clear. These weren't friendly chats. They were tense, cryptic. Someone had threatened him. You talk, you pay. This isn't a game. No one will believe you anyway. Dana printed every screenshot, labeled each one by date, built a timeline. She brought it back to the police station. Again, they barely glanced at it. The detective assigned to the case had been replaced by someone new, Detective Morgan. A woman, younger, sharper, but still cautious. Dana could see it in her eyes. That same flicker of hesitation. Dana had had enough. She took the screenshots and posted them. All of them. She uploaded every chat log, every date-stamped folder, every unanswered question. She called it #Justice for Jacob, and the internet responded. Thousands of shares, comments from people demanding accountability, tweets tagging law enforcement. Dana's story had broken into the public consciousness, and suddenly, the people who had ignored her were forced to acknowledge her. Local news picked it up again. Then regional. Eventually, a national outlet called. They wanted to do a feature. Dana sat in front of the camera, her voice steady but eyes full of the storm she'd weathered. She didn't ask for sympathy. She asked for truth. And the pressure worked. Detective Morgan reopened the case officially. A new forensic team was brought in to analyze Jacob's digital footprint. Dana finally had a seat at the table, even if only at the edge. What they found confirmed her worst fears and her deepest suspicions. Jacob had been speaking to someone much older, someone who had posed as a fellow teen online. The chats revealed manipulation, threats, and a growing fear in Jacob's tone. He tried to cut off contact multiple times, but the threats kept coming. The night before he died, he had written, "I can't take this anymore. They said they'd come after my mom next." That one sentence lit a fire under the case. Investigators traced the IP address. It led to a man living 2 towns over. A man already on a watch list, but who had never been formally charged. Until now. He was arrested quietly, no sirens, no news cameras. But Dana knew. She felt the moment it happened like a shift in the air. She sat in silence, clutching the arrest notice in her hands. And for the first time in over a year, she let herself breathe. But justice is never simple. The man pled not guilty. His lawyers argued the messages were fabricated, that Jacob had made it up, that the connection was circumstantial. Dana had to relive everything. In court, on the stand, she listened to her son's words read aloud, his pain turned into courtroom evidence, his fear questioned like it was fiction. People told her to prepare for disappointment, that even with all the evidence, it might not be enough. But Dana had been preparing for disappointment since the day the system first turned its back on her. She didn't expect miracles. She expected a fight. And she was ready. When the verdict finally came, the courtroom was silent. Guilty. On all counts. Dana didn't cry. Not in that moment. She just closed her eyes and whispered, "You did it, baby." Because in her heart, she knew Jacob had led her here. That he had left behind the breadcrumbs, and she had followed them, every painful, impossible step of the way. But even with a conviction, Dana's mission wasn't over. She began to speak publicly about the case, about digital predators, about how easily the system lets them slip through. She pushed for new policies, stronger monitoring of online communication in schools, improved training for police in recognizing grooming behaviors, and easier pathways for families to access digital evidence. Her advocacy reached lawmakers. She testified before a state panel. She was no longer just a grieving mother. She had become a voice for thousands. Dana still visits Jacob's grave every Sunday. She still hears his laugh in her dreams. And though nothing will ever fill the void of his absence, she knows she kept her promise. She didn't stop. She didn't go silent. She didn't let his story be forgotten. And in doing so, she made sure that Jacob's name would not just be associated with tragedy, but with truth and courage and a mother's unwavering love. If you've made it this far, thank you. Dana's story is just one of many. One of too many. If this video moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share it. Because justice doesn't always knock. Sometimes, it has to be dragged to the door.